Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Ryan Puzlakowski.
And I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
So today we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the all-new, totally redesigned 2023, drum roll please, nice, Toyota Prius. And now, I mean, I'm actually not joking around because, I mean, this is the Prius.
It's a big vehicle.
The Prius has been the hybrid of hybrids, right, for a long time
It's the hybrid, yeah.
And so when it gets redesigned, it's kind of, it is something worth talking about.
Absolutely.
And especially when it's this different. And just to keep in mind, this is a rented version of the Toyota Prius.
Not our test.
Right, that we rented from Toyota. So these will be our first impressions on this. We will be buying a Prius of our own for our test program as soon as one becomes available. And just for those of you that don't know, our kind of CR's deal is that we buy all of our test cars. So if we don't buy it, we won't test it. Right. And that's how we're kind of differentiated from most other media outlets that test and evaluate cars. So that's that. So the 2023 Prius, completely redesigned. Last redesign was in 2016, so it's been a little while. And it's almost like unrecognizable compared to before.
Yeah, when it's different, it's different. Yeah, for sure.
It has a little bit more power. It's now up to 196 horsepower from the 4-cylinder with the electric drive. All-wheel drive is still available like it was on the last generation. And there will be a Prime plug-in version coming later. And the standard active safety and driver assistance features include automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic warning, lane departure warning, and lane keeping assistance.
Note he said blind spot warning.
I did.
That was not part of Toyota's safety sense, and they've made it standard on this Prius. And people love it.
Yeah.
Standard now.
Yeah. That's good. That's a great thing.
Just jumping in on your
maybe,
list there.
Maybe we had something to do with that.
Maybe we did.
Yeah. Oh, it's my show. I don't know why you're jumping in on me. But, so
I apologize.
We rented the 2023 Toyota Prius Limited all-wheel drive. And you can get, the neat thing is you can get the all-wheel drive on any of the three trims, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
Sometimes they limit it just to, specific trims. So as we said, 196 horsepower, 2-liter 4-cylinder hybrid engine, electronic continuously variable transmission, all-wheel drive for this one, and with some options on the Limited that we rented and the $1,095 destination charge that they charge on all Priuses. Pre-I. The total price for this rented model was $38,595. So
that's a few dollars, huh?
Yeah, it is. So this is the top trim.
Yeah,
just
top trim. Well equipped,
so Ryan, but let's talk about this. I mean, because this is not your typical, kind of dorky looking Prius of many years. This is a whole different thing. What's going on here with Toyota?
Yeah, well, I think. Well, the first thing you notice when you look at this thing is it doesn't look like a Prius.
Right.
And the Prius was historically it's the hybrid of hybrids. It's this goofy sort of car.
Not in a terrible way.
But it has a ton of respect. I mean, everyone respects the Prius because it was a trailblazer for hybrids, and to this day, it's the hybrid. I think that was benchmarked by many other manufacturers. But it was kind of quirky looking, right? I mean, it was kind of hatchbacky. The back had that little window, and it was not really attractive, but super practical. You could jump in it and drive.
Quirky. I think quirky actually.
Well,
is
I'm
exactly
laughing at the words dorky, quirky.
You see the trend here.
There's a trend
with love.
With love,
right? I think Toyota maybe wants to get other people into this car. I think the Prius probably had a pretty cult following in a way. Like Prius people were Prius people,
right?
And this does not look like the Prius anymore. It looks like a little sporty little car.
Yeah.
There's some downsides to that. We'll talk about it eventually. But I think they're trying to get other people into the Prius nameplate, which I think is interesting because you can buy a Camry hybrid or a Corolla hybrid and get a ton of gas mileage and have a normal looking car, if you will. So that's what the kind of the thought maybe they're going here is they want to make it look normal for people. We talk about this with EVs. They're starting to make more normal looking car EVs. They're not like these radical ideas with, weird wings and things on them, So,
but it sounds like you're almost saying, and we'll get a little bit more into this later in the show, but it sounds like you're almost saying that kind of like, why did they do this when there already are these other sort of more normal looking hybrids?
That's my question, especially after driving it too, being in it.
That sounds like a fun teaser.
That sounds like a lead.
It's different. It's a lot different. I think that's a bold move for Toyota to do something like that. And Toyota's not known for making radical changes, right? I mean, that's what keeps their reliability floating along because they make small incremental changes. They keep it simple, and that's a beautiful thing.
Right. And that's not what happened here. So let's get into it, Jen. What's it like to drive this new Prius?
So, so just tagging on Ryan, I think it looks like a Model 3. Like they meant much more for that coupe look styling. Yeah. They moved that rear door handle up so it looks like a coupe even because it doesn't have that rear door handle. Anyway, driving wise, I think it does have more power. So you definitely feel that. You can drive it very gradually. I do think it handles a bit better. But there is this raspy, when that engine kicks in, or if you're on the throttle at all abruptly or trying to give it power, it is this raspy, not pleasant noise that just kicks in.
Right.
Not at all pleasant. There's the charge mode, the eco mode, and a power mode on that dial. When you hit that power mode, you're like, that sounds not nice. Right. It is not nice. Yeah. And it makes you feel like the car is struggling. But if you adapt your driving a little bit and just go a little more smoothly, it's plenty of power and it's quiet. So that kick in is so discongruent to what the normal quiet of it is that it's just like, I don't know what it is. And it must be just that engine kicking down, but it's not really a kick down.
Well,
it's CVT.
It's the CVT.
It's revving it up.
It's the CVT. And you know, we've gotten, every once in a while we have people write in like, you know, it's an eCVT, not a CVT, you know, about Toyota products.
Correct,
and look, folks, you can call it whatever you want, but the reality is, first of all, CVT is still in the name. And even though the bones are different, it actually is different than a regular CVT. The reality is, to the driver, it operates the same. And in this case, maybe worse, because this one doesn't do any simulated shifts whatsoever. Now, simulated shifts are in a way actually inefficient, but it makes the driving experience better. And I will say that I totally agree with you. When you are merging onto the highway, when you need real power, and it has real power. When you need it, good power, not awesome. It gets really loud, like I would say obnoxiously loud. And I almost kind of like just had fun with it at times, seeing how loud can I make this thing go? You know what? And guess what the answer is?
Really loud.
And so I think that's kind of a bummer. And you know, the way a CVT works is because it's constantly variable, right? If you're, say, driving on a regular secondary road, say 50 miles an hour or so, and you're following somebody, and you constantly are a little more on the throttle, a little off the throttle, and so that thing reacts instantly, and it just becomes an annoying groan. It
almost sounds like a regular transmission searching, but it's not really doing
Whereas a regular automatic transmission would hold that gear most of the time. Every once in a while with downshift, but not with every little throttle position change, it changes, and it just kind of gets annoying after a while. But anyway, so we don't love the powertrain, just because of the noise more than anything.
It's got plenty of power, just the noise part. And I do think the handling was a little less, a little better than the previous Prius. It seemed a little quicker. It seemed a little more grounded.
Anyway. Definitely a little sportier, I would say.
A little sportier. And again, to what you were saying, Ryan, I'm not sure that they are necessarily the goal is appealing to a bigger, more mainstream audience, as it is this whole trend, which we've seen in a bunch of EVs, to the sportier hybrid EV. Positioning hybrids and EVs as sporty cars. In addition.
So let's talk about all-wheel drive for a second, because that's part of the powertrain,
which I think is a great benefit of this.
So as we said, it is available again, but it's not a mechanical all-wheel drive system, right? And speaking of that, we actually have a question from Bill, who says, the Toyota Prius now offers all-wheel drive. And of course, it actually did with the last generation as well. But anyway, he says, the Toyota Prius now offers all-wheel drive. However, mechanically, it doesn't resemble a traditional all-wheel drive setup. How does this setup perform on the road and in the snow? So Ryan, I'm going to turn to you. What can you tell us about this type of all-wheel drive?
Yeah, so in the snow, we don't know. Unfortunately, we don't have any
with
snow.
This specific Prius.
We don't have any snow here in Connecticut, which has been a lame winter for that. But we don't know exactly. But I'll say this. It's not a traditional all-wheel drive system where you have the motor is up front, and you have power going to the front wheels, and there's some sort of a drive shaft that returns, goes to the rear.
Right.
And then you got power to the rear wheels. So it's mechanically connected the whole way. This is not at all. Basically the electric motors in this are in the rear, and they power the rear wheels, and the engine power, the gas engine powers
when
the front.
needed, basically. Right. Yeah.
And so it's electronic. It's kicking in the power when you need it. If you're driving on regular roads and you're just taking off, you're getting that electric boost as you're taking off, and then it carries on. Normal hybrid stuff. If you are driving in the snow, and there's some snow modes and different settings you can put it in, it will provide power to all four wheels accordingly. But it is not mechanically connected. I remember early on the first Highlander hybrid. They had some issues with. It was set up the same way,
right?
And they had some issues with the power, the electricity for the rear. The battery level has to be at a certain level to provide power to the wheels,
right?
And the battery level will get too low, and then you'd run out of essentially electricity to run the rear wheels, and they were front wheel drive cars, and people bought these as all wheel drive.
So it goes from all wheel drive to suddenly it's just
and
in a specific circumstance.
They've worked. And my point is they've worked their way these kinks out and all those things. Right. I have good faith in Toyota that they've got this pretty well ironed out now. And it kind of a genius idea when you think about it. I mean, the electric motors are in the rear. It keeps the weight of the balance of the car a little better. And it's tunable. Electric. We're learning this with EVs. It's so tunable that you can make these things do.
You don't live with all those. We've said before, all those mechanical losses. The other 9 months of the year when you don't need the all-wheel drive.
Right.
So there is a lower fuel economy.
Yeah.
So we talked about the powertrain. We talked about the handling. But let's talk about the ride a little bit, Jen. What did you think about the ride? And keep in mind, this thing is on 19-inch wheels.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Okay.
For 19-inch wheels.
Yeah, I did too. I was surprised.
I didn't.
You didn't.
Yeah, no.
Now you took it a little longer.
I took it on a long trip. I took it on a trip to New Hampshire and back.
It doesn't this car's louder and doesn't ride as well as the older one.
Yeah.
But the older one was softer handling. It was
true.
It fit that more.
Right. Maybe that's what we're saying. It's a better fit.
But before the handling, I thought it actually rode fairly well. I thought it was going to be stiffer. When you first get in a car and it handles pretty well, you usually expect a little stiffer ride. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, it has 50 aspect sidewalls. Right. Seems like it has no place.
Not much give.
We're going from 15-inch wheels on the last Prius to 19s.
I wanted to bring that up.
And so the lowest trim has 17s. The two higher trims come with 19s. I'm not sure which one we'll get. Maybe the middle one. But regardless, we're definitely at least having 17-inch wheels on the one we will buy. And to me, it was just... there were situations where, broken sections of highway where it would just punch through much more than I remembered on the last Prius and much more than I thought it should. True. Because I will also say, I'm not sure, again, maybe the traditional Prius buyer doesn't need the better handling, but maybe they're trying to go to get people who want a little better handling, right? So let's talk about traditional Prius buyers in the sense of fuel economy. Yeah. So the fuel economy, EPA estimates are basically the same as before. 57 MPG combined and 54 MPG combined for the LE, which is the base model with all-wheel drive with the smaller wheels. And then the XLE and Limited, and we had the Limited, with the 19-inch wheels, it's EPA rated at 52 MPG combined for the front-wheel drive and 49 MPG for the all-wheel drive, which is identical to the EPA numbers for the 2022 Prius for front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. Keep in mind the 2022 Prius Eco was rated at 56 MPG combined. So that's a lot of fuel economy numbers, but here's what I will say.
All very high fuel economy.
Here's what I will say.
Point that out.
I didn't see it on our computer readout, and I don't think most people did. I averaged to New Hampshire and back 40 MPG on the computer's readout, which is, of course, maybe not exactly perfect, but it's EPA rated at 50 on the highway. So I'm getting 40, and it's showing. And
I did my little quiz where I hide it. I reset. I had it after you, so I reset everything, hide it, do my normal driving. I did a little less highway, which technically should benefit a hybrid. So I got 43. So a little better than what you got, but it's not 50.
You're a more efficient driver than I am.
Yeah. Well, you just said you were tipping in to make it get as loud as you can. No wonder you didn't get it.
I would argue, though, I mean, you have a little more power on tap. Could you drive it efficiently if you really drive it, gently? Right. But if there's more power on tap, maybe your natural tendencies are to drive it and just use that power, and you're going to lose your fuel economy.
I'm not sure. We will test it, but
right. So here's what I would say. Okay, so let's say let's say it's not quite getting, it doesn't end up getting the EPA numbers or whatever, or it's getting 40. 40 is still really good in the grand scheme of vehicles. So it's like, yeah, we can complain about it, but it will be a little weird if it does go backwards. That seems a little, if our fuel economy numbers go backwards. The EPAs are saying that it's the same. So we'll see. More to come on that. So let's talk about, we already talked about cabin noise. I thought it was loud. You guys did think it was loud?
Oh, yes.
It feels under-insulated to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It was just...
You got to put the audio volume up loud.
You do.
If you're talking to someone, you're like elevating your voice.
You can't hear... sometimes I couldn't make out the songs, and I got some good country songs playing in there,
Maybe because you were singing too loud.
Keith Berry said in the logbook, he said, when you are merging onto the highway, it brings a raspy roar.
I wrote raspy.
So you stole his note. You stole his logbook.
You get a very clear raspy band.
Okay. And now, so
I wrote that word.
Let's talk about interior room.
Yeah.
And I'm going to turn to the big guy first.
Yeah.
What interior room?
Because it's a swoopier style car, right? So how does that affect the interior room for you?
Well, it's not good. I mean, the old Prius you could sit in, I had plenty of headroom, good visibility. This thing is real sleek. So the roof line's real low. It's got the A-pillar, the pillars that are closest to you coming up from the dash up over your head are very low and thicker. I think they seem thicker because they're so close to my head.
Yeah, exactly right.
So there's two cars lately that I've noticed. We had that Lucid Air.
Yep.
That had these huge pillars. Yeah. I hit my head on the pillar trying to look around the pillar. That's the kind of sensation I get in this car. Yeah. And the Lucid Air is this fancy, crazy, wild car. This is a Prius. This should be easy to live with.
And it was a bubble.
Right.
It was a much more.
Yeah.
What about the rear seats for you?
No, it's small. It's very small.
Yeah.
I was short on headroom, knee room, even the front seat. I mean, I had the seat I slammed the seat all the way to the floor in most cars. So I do that in this, but I'm still I feel like I'm in the clouds.
So this is a regression for you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, what about you, Jen?
So similar. So I don't feel like it got shorter, but it definitely got squattier. I think it was saying 2 inches of overall height.
Yeah.
So I was going to say exactly what Ryan says. I have pretty short legs, so I tend to go really forward. That A-pillar is right here.
Yeah.
Well, here. Let's talk about that for a second, because if you look at the car, side by side with the old Prius, you guys remember the term from maybe decades ago, cab forward, right? Yeah. They were always trying to go for a cab forward design. Yeah. If you look at this is almost like a cab rearward design, which in reality is so silly for a regular car because now that windshield pillar is right here. And I can't tell you how many times I had to, it seems like it goes forever. Yeah. And it's honestly just a really silly design for any car that's designed for just regular driving around. You should not, actually, I don't want to say it's dangerous, but it's not, it's getting you in situations where you could miss something, right?
It could have been different. It could have been easier to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the rear seat, I had plenty of foot room, unlike Ryan, and but you do have to do more ducking to get
it's the second.
We will definitely call
rear
that
seats
out.
for me are, unless it's a big car, I'm going to be snug no matter what. But headroom structure.
Same thing though. Pillars right here going the other way.
Yeah, kind of a little claustrophobic in the rear seat. Go ahead.
And just visibility wise, out the rear, it doesn't have that little window anymore. The old Prius had that bar.
Pontiac Aztec window.
Yeah, so we used to hate the bar, but at least we had that glass below it. Now there's no glass below it, so
I will say, I'll do the angle. That rake angle is so almost horizontal.
Rear window.
That when you're looking through it, the height of it is only this when you run the angle.
So this sounds
small.
This sounds like if I were an engineer, this is how I would handle things, right? You tell me you don't like something, right? We didn't like the horizontal bar going across because it was annoying. So it'd be a window, horizontal bar, and then a window.
Right.
And so I'd be like, okay, well, I'll just get rid of the bottom window. You guys will be happy. And that kind of seems like what they did. So now you have less window.
Yeah, you do.
The car is shaped a little differently than the older Prius there, but it's still that window is valuable, I think, just even as little as it was.
Yeah, we missed it. They're going to be like, are you kidding?
So I had two more comments on the kind of driving area, which is one, there is some center console intrusion with the right knee. It's not padded. That's not shocking for a kind of car in this price range, but it does hem your right knee in a bit. And then also the center armrest is basically unpadded. I mean, it's basically vinyl or leather over plastic. And so that's kind of annoying on a trip for me anyway.
What'd you think? I'm jumping to controls it, but what'd you think of I call it the heads-up display. That's not really a heads-up display.
The dash that's been a mile away from you?
It's like the Toyota BZ4X.
Yes.
Subaru Solterra.
But it's that
Solterra,
pod
exactly,
it's not a reflected heads-up display, but it is pretty high.
So the original Prius had sort of a new funky dash. That was like part of its, technology. But this is like another,
I kind of like it.
You do?
Yeah.
So did you did you like it in the BZ4X and the Solterra as well?
I didn't drive the Solterra yet. I've been traveling.
I don't mind it in the Solterra. I don't know why. Maybe because I just have room and I can fit in there better. This I felt like it was just miles away, and I don't know.
I liked the placement. I worry about light pollution at night, but you can't. I mean, the dimmer is right there. You can drop that down a little bit if you feel like it's hurting your pupils.
It actually worked better for me than it did in the Solterra BZ4X
I liked
twins,
it here.
Because in those ones it seemed like the steering wheel had to be so low for me to not block that, because you're not looking through the steering wheel, you're looking over the steering wheel, and it seemed unnaturally low. This one seemed more natural, and the instrument panel hump is not quite as large in this one, but because in those ones I really felt like I have to be looking up and over it.
And it does do things like check your speed, maybe, because it's showing you, it has sign recognition. So you see what the speed limit sign is right as you're kind of like, oh, I maybe need to slow down a little bit or whatever.
Controls.
Yeah.
What do you like and not like about the controls, Jen?
It still has the
gear selector.
I call it the wee little gear selector.
But that was another specific thing
I like where it is better. I still have trouble with shift, and then push button to park. But these are minor. In general, thought they're pretty good.
Real climate controls. Real physical climate controls.
I thought it was, I had no issues with it. And I kind of like the shifter, kind of similar to what it used to be. That was another thing the Prius kind of blazed the trail with, that funky shifter.
Actually.
It was actually on the dash. It was like
it was in a funny place.
Yeah, but it was that type of,
I think as an owner, you get used to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then just their rear door handles. Who wants to talk about that?
I meant they moved them up.
Kind of like hidden rear door
They're
handles.
hidden in the black trim. Again, I think it's contributing to that coupe Model 3 Prius type styling.
Yep.
It's not a deal breaker, but
they work.
Okay.
They work.
All right, so here's the question, folks. This is the question you guys have all been wanting us to answer.
Okay.
And I'm going to start with you, Jen.
Yeah.
Ladies first.
Okay.
Do you like this new Prius better or worse than the last one?
So it was funny. This is going to be much longer and more than you need to know. So I was thinking about people. And did you ever do some really silly or dumb thing, I don't care, in your whole life that you can't shake? Like
I've done so many dumb things that I can't shake. I mean, do you want a list?
I tell this story of, I'm a freshman in college. I'm walking back to my dorm. I'm cool now. I'm at UConn. I'm cool. I'm walking. The UConn shuttle bus goes by, right? And goes through a puddle. I think he did it and drenches me with mud.
Hilarious.
Now here I am in the middle of campus. I got to walk back into my dorm. So I could change my look, change my, be really successful, be on a podcast. I will still be that girl that got drenched with the bus at UConn. So
are you going to land the plane at some point here? Where are you going with this?
So if you could redesign and take away all the dumb things you ever did and just be a redesign, that would be great. But it's still a Prius. Mm-hmm. So they've redesigned it. They've made it sleeker, dressed it up, made it more performance. Did they do it to get rid of the dorky, quirky, all those words we just used, or did they do it to appeal to other people? My worry is, landing the plane now, that have you potentially lost the dorky people? The me who was drowned by this shuttle bus. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like that to me, when they make dramatic changes, is always the risk. We talked about the CRV.
Yep.
CRV, redesigned, great. They're not only going to gain some drivers, but they're not going to alienate the other ones. Right. And I wonder, vote to get to your question, I think I prefer the old Prius.
So to that point, you were sort of saying what were they trying to do? And in a meeting,
we won't know. But
in a meeting that we had with Toyota, a virtual meeting, they basically said, we weren't as concerned about fuel economy with this one as we were. You know how like you expect the Prius to get a little better each time, right? Yeah. And this time they're basically saying we weren't as concerned about fuel economy this time. Yeah. We wanted the car to appeal to more people. Mm-hmm. So Ryan, same question to you.
Yeah.
Do you like the new one better or do you like the old one better?
I like the old one better. I never thought I would say that. But it lost too many of its virtues that were the root of that car. Yep. I think, and I think not focusing on fuel economy in a Toyota Prius redesign is sort of a they're missing the point, I think. Granted, 40 something miles per gallon is absurd, right? And we're getting to the point of efficiency where we're not going to get a lot. You're not going to start see these big jumps in fuel economy anymore. So, but couple 2, 3 maybe would have been cool and a little more practical. But I don't know. It's a good looking car, but it's not for me. I don't think.
That's the thing is I think it looks fantastic.
I don't think they needed to change it. I think
I had several people tell me like how good they're like, that's a Prius. That thing looks great.
And you don't know.
Yeah.
So, immediately, it's so funny. When I was driving it yesterday, I was behind an old Prius. And like, in an instant what you're looking at. You might not know so quickly. Right. But it's still a Prius. Yeah. It's still Dorky Jen who got, you know what I mean?
I wasn't going to say it. But anyway, we have a first drive up on our website, consumerreports.org, written by friend of the show, Keith Barry. So please go check that out. And we'll be buying our own Prius, and then stay tuned for full road test results on that as well. And now let's move on to the audience question segment of the show. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Folks, reach out and talk to us. We want to hear from you. You know, it's maybe direct message Jen even. She, maybe not.
I would probably answer.
Let's see who we have today. Today we have Steve from Princeton Junction, New Jersey. Have you ever heard of Princeton Junction?
I have not heard of Princeton Junction.
It's a little, southeast of Princeton, New Jersey. So just for you guys who wanted to know, your geographic fans out there. So Steve says, super fan here with a quick question. Well, we love that.
Thank you, Steve.
That's why we picked the question. If he's going to compliment us, we're going to use that. So that's a good tip, folks. Compliment us. Flattery will get you everywhere.
Yeah,
so Steve says, how accurate are distance to empty and overall fuel economy calculators in today's modern automobile? Well, we were actually just talking about this, Zach. I take several road trips a year, and it would be nice to budget the actual cost of fuel as well as how many times I'll need to stop for refueling. If they aren't reliable, what is the most accurate way to determine true miles per gallon? I know a lot depends on speed, terrain, etc., but surely there has to be a way to figure out the true MPG. So Jen, I'm going to throw it to you first. Kind of like a two-part, question. What's your opinion here?
So for the vehicles we test, for most of them, the MPG estimates on those in-vehicle computers are really accurate, are really good. So if that's probably the easiest way. If you really want to know definitively for your route, how you drive, etc. Again, we don't know the algorithms that are behind those computers. You fill up the car, you drive a number of miles, you refill the car, and you divide that number of miles you drove on your trip computer divided by that gallons of fuel. Miles per gallon.
Right.
So you top it off again. And the more you go, the better off you are, the better estimate that is.
And your husband said that your engineering degree at UConn got you nowhere.
I know, it's true. But anyway, that is, and again, that's for your driving, your style.
Right.
If you're very aggressive, like apparently Mike is, then you might get less than that trip computer. But those trip computers are really, really good.
Yeah. What do you think, Ryan?
I don't think it's worth trying to calculate on. I don't like math. I would argue just let the car tell you because it's accurate. I think it's really accurate.
If it has one.
Well, the modern cars are impressive. Like the computer's looking at air, fuel mixtures. It knows if you're driving aggressively because you'll watch the numbers go down. Your distance empty. Same thing happens with an EV. If you drive it, aggressively, you see the mileage just disappear. It's paying attention to that stuff in real time, right? Yeah. I've almost run cars out of fuel before, and so you get down to like under 30 miles or something. It just says low fuel, and you're like, and then you panic because these 30 miles is still a long way, right? But then I always like to kind of figure out, because we have in the logbooks, we know exactly how many gallons the fuel tanks are in the test cars. So I like to figure out how close was I to walking, So I'll look, and a lot of times it's if I calculate it out, it's pretty darn close. I mean, not that there was plenty in there, but the distance to empty when it let go, when it said low fuel, it let off of 30. It was pretty close.
Yeah, because sometimes they quite often don't go all the way down to zero.
By intention. I'll go back to my fuel systems.
They know people are going to be idiots and going to see, well, let's see how much further I can press it. And I've had them go down to zero. Right. When I wasn't even in a familiar area where I was on my way to the airport, I was going to be in huge trouble, and it had gone to no miles left. And luckily I made it. Right. And then I had another interesting thing happen with the BMW iX, which is an electric vehicle, which is that, and people who, charge electric cars, they say, well, like I was talking to AAA and they said, well, no one runs those things down to empty. There's too many warnings. Well, Dorco here did. This was before I got my charger at home, which that's another story. But CR is helping us get at-home chargers so we can do all this EV testing. And so I'm driving to work and it just kept going lower and it was cold, lower. And I got to the point where, and the EVs count down. To all the way to 1 and then to 0. And I'm at 0 before and I'm like still like a mile from the track.
Wow.
Luckily I made it.
And they go into a limp mode, some of them.
This one did not quite go into that. But anyway, enough about that, enough about our old stories. But the bottom line is it sure appears as though you can trust those.
Yes, for the most part.
You can trust the MPG readouts, maybe even more than the distance to empty, because the distance to empty is, I think, trying to be conservative. So
so they're trying not to get you stuck. Yeah, exactly.
It's called the Mike Monticello protection package, but it doesn't go below 0.
Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to learn more about the cars and the topics that we talked about, you can click on the links in the show notes. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. This episode was produced by Dave Abrams and edited by Anatoly Shumsky and Andrew Belize. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next week.